Oh hey, welcome back to Vinyl Vision. I just got a visit from the United States Postal Service, and sometimes that means records. Yay! I don't know about you, but whenever I get records, it makes it feel like it's my birthday, except I don't have to tell anybody how old I am. The best thing is, I already know I'm going to like all of this because I'm the one that picked it out. Today, I'm only going to focus on one record in my collection, which I'm sure comes as a huge relief to most of you. But it was released in so many different iterations in so many different countries that it's worth talking about. And yes, yours truly has them all. 1978 is not exactly a year to look back on with any fondness about anything. Politics, movies, television, and especially music. Disco was getting ready to flame out. Progressive rock and heavy metal were getting ready to take a long nap. Even punk rock in England came and went without getting much notice in America. And even reliables like Eric Clapton and Paul McCartney couldn't come up with much. Eric Clapton's Lay Down Sally sounded more like an order than a request. And Paul McCartney's With a Little Luck was sort of a harbinger of bad music that was not going to go away for at least another 10 years. As it turns out, 1978 wasn't all bad. Thanks to A&M Records, the iconic record label founded by Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, located in the iconic Chaplin Studios, which had been built by the iconic Charlie Chaplin. They were about to shake up the music world. Well, my music world anyway. By 1978, I had already made the switch from AM to FM, which in those days was considered a rite of passage. But when this record came along, No Wave, it was a back-to-basics move that was the musical equivalent of a tsunami. The American pressing featured songs from 7 different bands that were currently signed to A&M, including The Police, Joe Jackson, The Stranglers, UK Squeeze, The Dickies, Clark Kent, and The Secret. Now, because this record was subtitled A Musical Dip into the Ocean of Contemporary Sounds, it was pressed on blue, wavy, transparent vinyl that was supposed to look like the water. No go, right? At the same time, a special promotional version was sent to radio stations that was also pressed on the same blue, wavy, transparent vinyl that was supposed to look like the water. The only difference between the two versions is that the promotional version is stamped on the label, not for sale. And instead of a jacket, the record came in a clear plastic sleeve with an 8x10 picture, a press release, and 2 groovy posters. Neat. The Police were probably the biggest deal on this record. Do you remember where you were when you first heard their single, Roxanne? Well, don't worry, I don't remember where you were when you first heard that song either. The Police went on to a substantial career that was destroyed only by the greed and the ego of Sting, who in the 1980s went on to record a series of politically pompous and musically ridiculous albums, a tradition I'm happy to say he continues to this day. The first Police album, Outlandos de Amor, was a big hit, and in England it was pressed in a limited edition on groovy blue vinyl. Now, despite the limited pressing, it really isn't worth all that much, and that's an observation you could also make about Sting. Maybe the Police were the biggest deal on the record, but that doesn't mean that everything else on it wasn't worth hearing, like Joe Jackson. Gifted with an okay voice, but a brilliant sense of humor, Joe Jackson's first album, Look Sharp, contained a number of hits like Is She Really Going Out With Him and Sunday Papers. In England, the record was pressed on groovy white vinyl in a limited edition, which has gotten very valuable. In the United States, A&M was toying around with the idea of 10-inch records as collector's items. And so Look Sharp got released as a double 10-inch package that included a Look Sharp button. Now, this is still available on the collector's market, but 99 out of 100 copies are going to be missing the button, and as you can clearly see, mine still exists. The Stranglers were never popular in the United States. They were ugly, they were nasty, and they were proud of it. You know, I'm still not sure whether or not you can play any of their records in polite company, but A&M was determined to promote them, which meant that the album Black and White was pressed on black and white splatter vinyl and sent to radio stations, except that no radio station would play it. And with songs like Nice and Sleazy, you can pretty much guess why. Not a great album, but a pretty cool collector's item. Squeeze started out in England as Squeeze, but when they came to the United States, they had to be called UK Squeeze for copyright reasons. And their first record was sent to radio stations pressed on groovy red vinyl. But for different reasons, it didn't get much radio play either. It was produced by John Cale of the Velvet Underground, and that was about all it had going for it. Squeeze, of course, would go on to success with future albums. The Dickies were named after a popular line of work clothes, Get Your Mind Out of the Gutter, and they were sort of the Los Angeles version of the Ramones, except that the Ramones pretended to be dumb, whereas the Dickies actually were. Their first record was released by A&M as a 10-inch, and it was pressed on groovy white vinyl. It contained their version of Black Sabbath's Paranoid, which they played at approximately 100 miles an hour. Now, the Dickies went on to make more records for A&M, but they never really achieved the success of the Ramones, and this record kind of proves that they didn't deserve to. Clark Kent, marketed as a mystery artist, everybody pretty much knew that it was really Stuart Copeland, who was the drummer for the Police, and he wrote and played and sang everything on it. Again, it was released as a 10-inch record, this time on groovy green vinyl. Did it sound like the Police? Well, let's just say that as a singer, Stuart Copeland was an excellent drummer. The success of No Wave prompted A&M to release it as a groovy picture disc. It replicated the album cover on the front and a pizza with everything on the back. Like most picture discs, it sounded terrible, but it really did look like you were playing a pizza on your turntable. Finally, in one last move, A&M released No Wave on traditional black vinyl, which wasn't a lot of fun to look at, but ironically, it's probably become the most collectible out of the whole bunch. No go, right? Is that the end of the story? Oh no, my friends. When A&M went to release No Wave in the rest of the world, they had to deal with entertainment lawyers, musical politics, contracts, and a whole host of things that would make No Wave virtually unrecognizable and, as a result, very collectible in more ways than one. Stay tuned for the next episode of Vinyl Vision to hear all about that. That's it. I'm done talking. If you found this video to be helpful or entertaining in any way, shape, or form, I don't know what I did wrong. But in the meanwhile, until the next time, goodbye from Vinyl Vision. Now go listen to some records.